Spine-chilling hiking tales, unexplainable horrors discovered in cursed wilderness trails. The sun shone brightly as Jessica packed the car with snacks, water bottles, and 2 eager kids. Despite the whispers of the townsfolk trailing off her every step, this weekend was going to be different. Just a short hike, she assured Max and Lily, hoping to silence the nagging fears in her mind. When her husband had died unexpectedly, everything crumbled. Now, as a single mom, the pressure felt like a boulder on her chest. If only the forest didn't loom so ominously, with its dark trees writhing like sentinels guarding secrets too terrible to tell. As they drove out of town, the streets became familiar, yet unsettling. The trees surrounding Black Hollow Forest began closing in, creating shadows that felt alive. Max giggled, poking his sister as they crossed into the threshold of the forest. But Jessica noticed their laughter fading, stifled by an unseen weight in the air. A mist, thick and clammy, slithered along the ground, twisting shapes in the fog that made her heart pound like a drum. Just a little mist, she tried to comfort herself, but something stirred deep inside, a whisper she couldn't ignore. As they licked ice cream cones under a canopy of gnarled branches, the sun sank lower, casting twisted silhouettes against the dull light. It wasn't long before the giggles turned into anxious glances at the weird carvings etched into the trees, symbols that sent icy fingers crawling up her spine. "What are those, Mommy?" Lily asked, eyes wide with excitement and fear. "Just some old carvings," Jessica replied, but her voice trembled. "Lost travelers. That's what the locals whispered about those who wandered too deep into Black Hollow." The deeper they trekked, the darker it became. The day's light waned and sounds morphed into dissonance. The wind moaned like a child lost. Branches cracked ominously overhead. "Do you feel that?" Max's voice quivered beside her. "Like we're being watched?" Her heart raced, the thread of dread tightening its grip. "No way, just your imagination," she laughed, but it sounded hollow, even to her ears. The forest seemed to breathe, its very essence pulsing with something unfathomable. Then, just like that, Max and Lily darted off, chasing a flickering movement beyond the trees. "Wait!" she shouted, adrenaline surging as they vanished into the shadows. Panic clawed at her throat. She scrambled after them, shouting their names into the dark abyss. But the mist swallowed her cries, leaving only silence that echoed back. Alone, reality slammed into her, no one to help, just another statistic of a struggling mother unable to keep her children close. Frantically weaving through the woods, she felt the oppressive atmosphere closing in, alive with watching eyes. Memories of the legends twisted in her head, ancient whispers of a shadowy figure with dark intentions. Every rustle became a sinister whisper, every shadow an echo of loss. "Help!" she cried, but the words fell limp, drowned out by the creeping dread. As she stumbled into a clearing, silhouettes emerged before her, faceless and terrifying, cradled in the thick fog. For a brief, heart-stopping moment, she thought she saw Lily's hair, golden against the falling dusk, but it was fleeting. The darkness tightened around her. Every instinct screamed to flee, but the echoes of her children's laughter called her forward. Something primal within her fought against the terror gripping her heart. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue." Jessica stood frozen at the edge of the clearing, her stomach twisted with dread. The mist thickened, swirling as if breathing around her. The shadowy figures moved closer. "Max! Lily!" she cried out desperately, her voice trembling. But then, from the heart of that dreadful fog, a chill whispered her name and she felt the pull, a darkness beckoning, urging her to discover what lay hidden in the cursed heart of Black Hollow. The shadows shifted, and she realized she had stepped into an unseen web of terror. What awaited her in the depths was more than she could ever imagine, grasping at the edge of the familiar. A darkness that threatened to consume everything she held dear. Jessica's heart raced, each beat echoing in her ears like a war drum. The whispers in the mist grew louder, wrapping around her, pulling her in. She felt their chill seep into her bones, urging her to move forward. "Max! Lily!" she called again, her voice sharp and panicked. But now even that seemed to die away in the thickening fog. The shadowy figures shifted, their forms fluid yet jarring like reflections in a broken mirror. They loomed closer, drawing her in, compelling her to approach. The unsettling feeling in her gut was overshadowed by an unnatural sense of urgency. For a second, she glimpsed the glimmer of something gold in the mist, just beyond the shapes. Without thinking, she lunged toward it, hoping against hope it was her daughter. "Mommy?" A tiny voice echoed, cutting through the dense air like a knife. Jessica's heart surged, a flicker of hope igniting amidst the despair. "Lily, where are you?" she shouted, desperation clawing at her throat. The fog hung thick and heavy around her, but she pushed forward, determined to find her children. The world around her twisted, the fog swirling into shapes, faces distorted in pain, limbs elongated unnaturally. Jessica stumbled back, horror pooling in her stomach. "This isn't real," she whispered to herself, clutching her hands into fists. Suddenly a laugh rang out, a familiar, sweet sound. "Mommy!" It was Max, a blend of joy and terror. The laughter echoed from somewhere deeper within the mist, luring her forward. "Max!" Jessica urged, her voice barely a whisper now, trembling with uncertainty. As she ventured further, an oppressive silence replaced the laughter. Every breath she took feeling more constricted than the last. Shadows swirled at her feet, whispering secrets she couldn't decipher. Panic surged again. What if the laughter had been a trick? "Max!" she called, eyes darting around. The clearing morphed, branches clawed at her skin, mist draped tighter, squeezing her chest. Then she saw it. A figure emerged from the fog, cloaked in shadow but distinctly human in shape. Jessica's breath caught as she recognized the glint of golden hair framing a small face. Her daughter, standing still as stone, eyes wide yet unfocused. "Lily!" she screamed, racing toward her. But as she reached her, the shadow around Lily flickered and changed. "Mommy!" Lily's voice came out hollow, like an echo of someone long gone. Jessica froze, dread crashing over her. "Lily, what's wrong?" She knelt, searching her daughter's eyes for recognition. They were no longer just innocent eyes. There was something else lurking within, something dark and unknowable. The edges of the forest blurred, the air thickening with unspoken malice. "Don't go," Lily whispered, but her next words were twisted, slurred together like a chant. "Mommy, it's not safe here." Just then Max stumbled into view, his makeshift bravery evaporating beneath the weight of the mist. Panic seeped through him. "Mom, we have to go." He pulled at her arm with a force that startled her out of her stupor. "They're coming!" Jessica turned, nearly tripping over her own feet as the shadows danced toward her, their forms indistinct yet approaching with purpose. The whispers rose, growing louder and more insistent. She felt their claws reaching out within the fog, grasping to pull her back as she stumbled forward. "Run!" she finally yelled, the urgency propelling her into action. The mist roared around them, swallowing the frantic cries of her children as they turned to flee. But as they dashed toward what they hoped was safety, the ground below shifted, cracks opening like jaws ready to consume them whole. Just as she thought they might escape, a cold hand grasped her shoulder. Jessica gasped, her heart threatening to explode, and as she turned to face the unseen terror, she fell into it, a darkness that felt alive, an all-consuming void. Had she stepped into the heart of Black Hollow? The thought clawed at her sanity. Then she heard the children's voices, piercing through the icy grip that held her in place. "Mommy!" But now, there was no certainty left, just the chilling sensation of being lost in the depths of unforgiving shadows, and the dawning realization that maybe, just maybe, the forest wasn't a prison, but a trap. for the entities that haunted these woods were more sinister than mere shadows. What awaited her in the mist? Could she reclaim her children from the malevolent forces that dwelled within? Or had she wandered too deep, sealing their fate together? The air hummed with the answer, just beyond her reach. A jarring voice sliced through the fog, pulling Jessica's attention back to the surface of her horror. Shapes flickered in the gloom, faces morphing from familiar to contorted forms of despair and malice. She shook her head, trying to clear the thick fog that had settled over her mind. "Max! Lily!" she cried again, her voice strangled. She felt it, an urge to stay, to listen, to let the darkness wrap around her. Every moment felt like an eternity, and each breath came with a pang of ice in her chest. It was like a nightmare she couldn't wake from. The echo of her children's names felt distinctly wrong, as if the very air was taunting her. Suddenly the mist parted in front of her, revealing a narrow path illuminated by a strange, glimmering light. It pulsed rhythmically. Jessica hesitated, knowing deep down that something was wrong, but the urgency to find her children outweighed her instincts. She moved toward the light, each step sending a tremor of trepidation through her. The air shifted, growing denser around her. It felt alive, a creature that was watching and waiting. As she neared the light, she could see it wasn't the sun breaking through the leaves, but a cluster of small, flickering orbs. They hovered above the ground, swirling like fireflies, beckoning her forward. "Mommy!" A faint voice resonated from the left. "Max!" Jessica spun to the side, adrenaline surging as she spotted her son. He stood near a twisted tree, face wet with tears, eyes wide with fear. "Max!" she shouted. But the orbs began to dim, the shadows creeping in from all sides. The whispers grew louder, jagged syllables that formed words she didn't want to comprehend. They played on her mind, wrapping around her like barbed wire. "Help us!" Max screamed, the sound slicing through her heart. As she sprinted toward him, she felt a pull on her soul, a force trying to drag her back. "Hurry, Mom!" But when she reached him, the dreadful aura enveloped her. The twisted tree that loomed behind Max seemed to breathe, its gnarled roots writhing like serpents. Max stood there, but his usual warmth felt muted, as if the light around him had dimmed. His face was pallid, caught in a web of fear. "I can't stay here," he cried, stepping back slightly. A chill brushed past her, and the whispers escalated, desperate. Jessica turned again, searching for Lily, and then she saw her. Not far away, crouched beneath a different tainted tree, Lily's golden hair glimmered, but her face was shrouded in shadow, eyes glassy, staring into an invisible void. "Mommy." Her voice was barely a whisper, drawn out like a thread of a haunting melody. "Lily." Jessica's voice cracked as she stretched out her hand, feeling that instinctical tug. Save them both. But the shadows began to shift once more. They danced, closing in on her, elongating into claw-like shapes. She took a step forward, then another, feeling the ground ripple beneath her feet. The air thickened, choking her breath. "Mommy, please!" Lily begged, her voice distorted, spinning into chaos. The mist swelled with a life of its own, whispering secrets of despair and nightmares yet to unfold. "Don't! Stay away!" Max's voice broke through, commanding. Jessica's heart thundered. She had to choose. Go to Max or reach for Lily. Time froze, the choice weighing heavy in the suffocating fog. Suddenly, shrill laughter erupted from the shadows, mocking, echoing through the dark. Jessica's mind reeled. No matter which way she chose, one child would be left behind to face whatever this darkness craved. "Mom!" Max implored. "Mommy, come to me." Lily beckoned, her sweet voice corrupted by the mist pinching at Jessica's heart. As she stood at that terrible divide, Jessica felt the tendrils of darkness wrap lovingly around her, tempting, promising safety and surrender. She gasped, fighting to keep her resolve as the mirage of children swirled in front of her. With a primal scream, she lunged toward the sound of her daughter's voice. But had she just sealed their fate? The laughter crescendoed, and the shadows lunged. What looming terror would ensnare them next? The forest seemed to whisper the answers, but in a language only the damned could understand. Jessica's heart raced as she lunged through the murky haze, chasing the haunting whispers of her daughter. Just when she thought she could grasp Lily's outstretched hand, a wave of cold swept over her like icy water, pulling her back. The laughter came again, sharper this time, the shadows morphing into grotesque forms that danced around her with a sinister grace. "Mommy." Lily's voice faded, replaced by an echoing cacophony of cries, voices twisted by pain, pleading, and anger. Each sound clawed at Jessica's resolve, making her stumble as she fought to maintain her focus. She glanced back at Max, who stood paralyzed, fear etched on his face. "Don't leave me." His voice sliced through the chaos, and Jessica felt herself torn between the two. It was a nightmare where time slipped through her fingers, and each decision held the weight of life and death. Ignoring the panic blooming in her chest, Jessica spun around to face Max. "I'm coming, hold on." The air around them seemed to pulse with malice, wrapping tighter around her limbs with every step she took. The path twisted, an unnatural road that bore no resemblance to the woodland she had known. Suddenly the ground gave way under her feet. Jessica fell to her knees, catching herself in the dirt, and looked up in horror as the shadows swarmed closer, taking shape. Faces of those long lost to despair materialized within the fog, staring at her with hollow eyes, their lips pulling back in mocking smiles. She recognized them, familiar townsfolk, shadows of memories twisted by grief. "Save us," they cried in unison, their voices merging into a dreadful chorus. Her breath caught. This was not just darkness, it was hungry, alive, and it wanted to consume her. They were specters of regret, the promises broken in life. Jessica's pulse thundered in her ears as she forced herself back up. "No!" she shouted. "I will not be part of this." But her defiance felt like whispers against the roaring storm. The orbs flickered like dying stars, dimming as they fed off the fear swirling around her. "Mommy!" Max's voice cracked again, a fragile wail that shattered Jessica's heart. The shadows recoiled, hastening their attack as if sensing her emotional turmoil. They closed in, and the laughter became a shriek that echoed in her mind, twisting her thoughts into knots. With a surge of desperation, Jessica lunged toward Max. But as she stepped forward, the ground shifted again. It felt like a living thing, bucking beneath her feet, dragging her back toward the void. "Please," she cried out, her voice trembling, "don't take them." The mist enveloped her, thickening, and she could feel the warmth being leached from her skin. The world around her faded, landscapes morphing into nothingness, void of familiar shapes. Then, in the corner of her eye, a flicker of light emerged. It pulsed like a heartbeat, steady and fierce. Jessica felt drawn to it, a beacon amidst the despair. "Lily! Max! This way!" But as she ran, a figure materialized from the shadows. It was a silhouette of a man, his eyes two glowing embers of wicked delight. "You think you can leave this place with them? They are part of the darkness now, just like you." A shockwave of terror swept through her. She stumbled, catching her breath just long enough to recognize the face, twisted and familiar. It was her husband, tears streaming down his face, but the expressions held no warmth, only pure malice. "Join us, Jessica, or watch them fall into the abyss." Time stopped. That choice loomed over her like a guillotine, crashing down fast as she felt the darkness seep further into her soul. The laughter morphed again, louder, surrounding her in an insatiable frenzy, pulling her deeper into despair. Could she fight back? Could she save her children from this nightmare they were all trapped in? As darkness closed in, she felt her strength fading, but she couldn't let go. "Not today," Jessica growled, clenching her fists. She had to choose to fight. But would it be enough? The mist swirled as she prepared to confront her own demons. Would she lose everything trying to save the light? The shadows whispered eagerly, waiting for her answer. What would she sacrifice to bring her children back? The shadows faded, revealing a choice she hadn't expected. Jessica's breath hitched as the shadows pulled back, revealing a path, a twisted, gnarled trail, faintly illuminated by the pulsating light she had seen. Heart pounding, she sprinted toward it, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Mommy!" The sound of her children's voices echoed closer now, but so did the malicious laughter that wrapped around her, trying to drag her down into despair. Ignoring the ache in her limbs, she focused on that flicker of hope, drawing nearer with every step. But darkness hadn't abandoned her. The wind picked up, howling through the trees like a tortured soul, whipping her hair around her face. Each gust felt like icy hands clawing against her skin. When she reached the light, she stumbled to a halt, and what she saw made her blood run cold. A mirror stood there, tall and daunting, its frame covered in grotesque carvings that seemed to shift and writhe in the flickering glow. The glass was dark, shadowy, a portal that absorbed the light around it. She could feel its pull, begging her to come closer, to peer deeper. Footsteps echoed behind her. She turned just in time to see the forms of her children stepping through the mist. Lily and Max stumbled forward, their faces pale, eyes wide with terror. "Mommy!" they chorused, reaching out to her. But the moment of relief was short-lived. From behind the lifeless frame of the mirror, her husband stepped forward, his visage warped and twisted beyond recognition. "They're not safe with you," he rasped. "You brought them here. You need to let go." "No," Jessica shouted, shaking her head furiously, inching backward. "This isn't real. You aren't him." A low growl escaped from the shadows, echoing the depths of her fears. Desperation clawed at her throat. "Lily, Max, come here," she screamed, urging them toward her. But each time they moved, the mirror pulsed ominously, and she could see flashes of scenes behind it. Dark figures emerging, entwined with the faces of those she had lost. "Mommy, we're scared," Max cried, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Hold on," she yelled back as the wind howled around her, threatening to drown her voice. The shadows swirled angrily, stinging her skin, taunting her with grotesque shapes and haunting whispers. She had to act. Without thinking, she dashed toward the mirror, the only thing that could either save them or trap them forever. "I won't let you take them," she shouted, her heart racing. The air thickened, and the shadows lunged at her, but she pressed against the cool glass, feeling a surge. A flash of something essential. A connection to her children. In that moment, she closed her eyes and reached out, drawing on every ounce of love for her kids. "I love you. I'll fight for you." Suddenly, the world exploded around her. The mirror cracked, splintering wide open, revealing swirling colors and vibrant light that pushed back the darkness. The shadows recoiled, hissing and shrieking, desperate to hold on to something. "Mommy, help!" Lily's voice cried out from the depths of the chaos, and Jessica felt her heart crack open, every ache becoming fuel for her determination. With a roar that shook the very ground beneath her, she lunged into the light, hands outstretched. The moment her fingers brushed against the warm glow, a shock wave reverberated through the air, sending the shadows scrambling in retreat. But just as quickly as the light engulfed her, the laughter morphed into a deafening roar, drowning her senses and blurring her vision. Reality slipped like sand through her fingers. "Everything has a price," a voice whispered, coiling around her mind. "What will you give to stay?" Jessica's heart raced. She could feel the cold fingers of fear skimming her spine. She had made her choice. But what would be left of her if she survived? The shadows loomed like a storm beyond the light, waiting for her answer. Did she have the strength to overpower her own darkness? To rescue her children from the clutches of despair? As she closed her eyes against the chaos, clarity washed over her. But would that clarity cost her the very thing she fought for? Jessica felt her insides twist as the roaring laughter faded into a cacophony of whispers. The world around her contorted, colors blending and morphing into ghastly shadows that clawed at her mind. She opened her eyes, half expecting to be back in the embrace of the darkness, but she was still engulfed in the harsh light of the shattered mirror. "Mommy!" The voices of her children cut through the noise, igniting a flicker of hope in the chaos. But there was another undercurrent, a sinister fnoon, a chorus of taunts that seemed to echo from the depths of the mirror. They were trying to drown her out. "Stay with us." The low growl rose again, its pitch cutting deeper than any blade. Shadows trembled at the edges of the light, waiting for her to falter. You have so much to lose. She shook her head, her hair whipping around her face as another gust of malevolent wind tried to pull her into the abyss. I won't let you take them, she screamed, her voice raw. As if in response, the atmosphere thickened, like the dense fog creeping into her mind. She staggered back, the pulsating light around her flickering ominously. Each pulse felt like a heartbeat, restless and sinister, a reminder of what was at stake. The mirror's reflection began to shift. Images lurked in the shadows. A scene from her past flowed into view. Family picnics, laughter echoing in the summer air, her husband's warm embrace. When she looked closer, that warmth turned to ice. The laughter twisted into something ghastly. The more she strained to see, the darker the images became. Hands grabbed her wrists, not her children's, but elongated, shadowy fingers that pulled her towards the glass. She fought back, feeling dread wash over her. Get away from me, she cried, twisting free, but the pull was relentless. Mommy! Lily's voice came again, desperate and laced with fear. Jessica's heart clenched. She could not lose them. Clenching her fists, she pushed against the dark forces with every ounce of love she had left. I love you, she shouted, her voice a defiant beacon in the surrounding darkness. I choose you. With each declaration, the mirror roared to life. Fractures spread like wild vines across its surface. The laughter turned shrill, distorted. The shadows writhed and twisted, recoiling from her strength. But then she noticed something, a flicker of something within the swirling colors, the outline of her children, reaching out, fading fast. No! Panic surged through her. She couldn't lose them again. Jessica lunged toward the mirror, willing herself to break through the pain, to shatter the illusion. She pressed her palm to the glass, feeling warmth radiate from her skin to the crevices of the shattered reflections. Just as she felt that connection flicker, tremors rattled the ground. Fear splintered the air as echoes of angry moans surrounded her. Everything has a price. That ominous voice whispered again, slithering into her thoughts. What will you give to save them? The ground beneath her began to crack, splitting wide open. The light flickered fiercely, a flash of hope intertwined with the imminent abyss. A vision blurred together, her children's faces illuminated, but dark forms clawed at their backs, dragging them further away. Gritting her teeth, she took a deep breath. She had to decide. What was worth saving? What was worth sacrificing? Eyes locked on that glimmer of hope, she closed her eyes, feeling the tendrils of darkness brushing against her mind, threatening to pull her under. Mommy, please! Lily's voice called again, and with it an urgency seized her. Jessica felt the tremor beneath her feet grow. Willing her heart to trust in the love that bounded her, she heard her own voice rise, stronger now. I will never let you go. The mirror shattered completely, light flaring bright before darkness descended like a cloak. Was this victory or oblivion? In that moment she couldn't tell. Then silence fell. An unnerving calm draped over her, and she took a shaky step forward, uncertainty wrapping around her like a noose. What lay beyond the remnants of shattered glass? Jessica! A voice called out from the depths, inviting yet sinister. Welcome home. Hesitation gripped her as shadows loomed ever closer. What awaited her beyond the shattered remnants of her illusion? Could she truly trust the darkness, or was it merely a lure? Jessica took another breath, the cold creeping back in. She had to choose. Again. Jessica stood before the gaping maw of the darkness, a thick fog swirling around her feet like a living entity. The familiar warmth of her children felt distant, as if their love was tethered to another place, another time. Her breaths came quick and sharp. The silence around her swirled with unspoken threats, each heartbeat echoing ominously like a war drum. Welcome home, the voice purred again, sweetness laced with danger. What was home now? This space felt alien, twisted. She almost turned back, tempted by the idea of retreating to the familiar chaos of her shattered life. But the pit in her stomach heaved with urgency. Time was fading. A low growl echoed through the shadows, and with it came a flash, a glimpse of her children. They weren't as she remembered. Their innocent faces now stretched and contorted, faces ghostly pale, eyes wide in terror, trembling as they stood in the suffocating fog. Where were they? Desperation clawed at her throat as she stepped deeper into the darkness. Lily! Max! She shouted their names, the sound swallowed whole by the oppressive gloom. Sudden pressure built around her, like a vice squeezing the air, forcing her to drop to her knees. The chill crept into her bones as laughter erupted again, both joyous and malevolent, an echoing madness. It was a cruel reminder of her own sanity twisting like the fingers of shadow reaching toward her. Come play with us, Jessica. The shadows beckoned, a chorus of whispers drawing her closer, their tones sweet like honey but laced with poison. We can have so much fun together. As the laughter faded, a cold realization swept over her. They weren't alone. She could feel eyes watching her from the darkness, craving her fear, feeding off it. Each beat of her heart resonated against the weight of their intent, pressing against her skin like hands waiting to pull her under. Then she saw it, a flicker of movement, a glimpse of a shadow racing across the edges of her vision. Her instincts screamed at her, the children. Her love for them ignited a fierce spark within. Clenching her fists, she forced herself to stand. I'm coming, she yelled, determination rising like bile. The shadows shifted in response, recoiling at her defiance, but she sensed they were regrouping, ready to pounce. Each step she took felt heavier, dragging like lead. But she pressed on, calling out for her children, filling the hollow space with sound. It was the only way to drown out the whispers that twisted her thoughts, delusions that offered twisted comforts while plotting her demise. Mommy! Their pleas rang through the darkness again, clearer now. She sprinted forward, propelled by a mixture of terror and resolve. As she pushed deeper, an unearthly wind rose, snapping at her clothes, tugging her back with chilling insistence. The fog thinned momentarily, revealing a shimmering glade. There, against the backdrop of ethereal light, stood two figures, no longer distorted, but wholly themselves. Lily and Max. Relief washed over her, but it was short-lived. The shadows coalesced around them, darker and hungrier, an unholy mass ready to snatch them away. Let them go, she cried, her voice hoarsening as she felt the shadows close in. Light flickered to life around her, shimmering in protest. She surged forward, casting everything behind her, the pain, the grief, the fear. But as she neared, the light flickered, revealing not just her children but also the dark entity manifesting behind them. A grotesque figure with limbs that branched like gnarled trees, its face a void that seemed to pull in all light. Jessica, it hissed, voice like ice, curling tendrils of darkness reaching towards her. You're too late. As the ground quaked beneath her, her pulse slapped against her ears. With sheer will she grappled for her children, stretching her arms as the darkness surged to swallow them whole, ready to snatch the last thing she loved. Did she have enough strength to fight the binding darkness? Would she save them or lose herself to the sinister laughter once more? In that moment the ground split open, and Jessica's scream cut through the air, echoing into the void as she felt herself yanked in multiple directions. Could love be enough to sever the grip of evil, or would it consume her entirely? The ground trembled, splitting into a jagged chasm that swallowed the glade's light whole. Jessica's scream tangled in the rush of darkness, pulling her down as if the void had teeth. Desperation clawed at her mind, the fear of losing her children making her heart pound like a war drum. Clenching her teeth, she gripped the earth, trying to anchor herself. Lily, Max! Her voice sliced through the cacophony of laughter, and for a moment she felt a glimmer of hope, their names hanging in the air, fragile against the suffocating shadows. But the dark entity curled around her, its icy breath on her neck. Your love is worthless here, it purred with a voice like scraping metal. Join us in the abyss, Jessica. She shook her head violently, tears mixing with the fog, blurring her vision. No, I won't let you take them. The ground beneath her throbbed, and her surroundings warped as if reality itself twisted to the whims of the entity. The children were slipping away. She could feel it. Panic surged through her, threatening to consume her. With a fierce determination, Jessica lunged toward the remnants of the glade, reaching for Lily and Max, who stood frozen. Fear etched across their pale faces. "Mommy!" Their cries felt like a lifeline. As she grasped for them, the shadows writhed, shrieking in rage. The darkness clawed at her limbs, trying to pull her back. Dread sank deep within her. With every inch, it felt as if the ground were turning against her, shifting like a serpent coiling tighter. "No, I won't let you have them!" The words erupted from her throat, filled with a raw force. The light flickered tenuously around her again, a fleeting reminder of hope. The shadows recoiled for just a moment, enough for Jessica to feel the connection with her children. Every breath they took stirred something deep in her, an ancient tether of love, fierce and undying. She wouldn't let fear fracture that bond. "Hold on to me," she shouted, extending her arms as a new wave of energy surged through her. If she could reach them, if their hands could clasp, perhaps their love could drive away the encroaching darkness. Lily and Max blinked, their terror intertwining with desperation as they lunged toward their mother. Hands met, heat igniting a brilliance that shimmered against the looming shadows. But the dark entity roared, its form growing massive, limbs twisting grotesquely. It rushed forward, eager to sever that precious bond. "Together!" Jessica screamed, pulling her children closer. The moment their fingers intertwined, a fierce light erupted, illuminating the fog in brilliant white. The shadows shrieked, recoiling as the light pierced through their existence. But it was not enough. The entity screamed, an otherworldly wail that shattered her eardrums. It was relentless, a tide of blackness crashing against the fragile light. "Mommy!" Max's voice trembled, filled with the weight of their shared fear. Then the darkness shifted, and in a cataclysmic lurch, the ground opened wider, sucking everything into a whirlpool of chaos. The loving spark dimmed, a mere flicker against the overwhelming force trying to tear them apart. Jessica, heart racing, felt the fabric of reality stretching impossibly thin. "I will fight for you." Her voice rang out, defiant, and even as the void threatened to consume them all, she clung to that truth. A blinding flash erupted just as the shadows surged once more. This was it. Either they would shatter the darkness together, or they would fall into the abyss. As her world spun wildly, Jessica felt herself being pulled toward the void. Did love have the power to withstand the entity's relentless grip, or was it too late? With a final desperate gasp, she hoisted her children closer, determined to face whatever darkness lay ahead. Would they emerge from the void, or would they be lost forever in its consuming depths? The light flared, bright enough to blind for a heartbeat. Then, just as suddenly, it sputtered and died. Darkness enveloped Jessica, wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. The ground beneath her gave another violent lurch. She felt her feet lose contact just as the grip she had on her children slipped. "Mommy!" Their voices echoed in the void, a sound that reached deep into her core, fueling an instinctual panic. She twisted in the growing obsidian around her, searching for the warmth of their hands, but every second felt like an hour. Cold, dark fingers brushed at her skin, almost brushing the edges of her heart. "Lily! Max!" she shouted again, her voice breaking. More laughter, a cacophony of taunting giggles, swirled through the air. It came from everywhere and nowhere. Suddenly, she felt a tug at her arm. A fleeting glimmer of hope ignited in her chest. "There you are!" Jessica stumbled. Her hands caught something small and fragile, something that pulsed with life. "Hold on tight," she urged, feeling the feather-light grip of a hand clawing at her wrist. It wasn't Max or Lily. Its grip was wrong, feeble, a whisper of a presence. The entity surged back, their connection yanked away like a fragile thread snapping. Despair crashed over her. "No!" Jessica screamed, her throat raw. It was pure survival now, an instinct to fight. She spun, searching again. The stillness of the darkness was broken only by the rhythmic sound of breathing. Pounding pulses, synchronized behind the silence, echoed in time with her heart. Each beat grew louder, a countdown to catastrophe. She knew she had to move, but where? Her heart raced as she stumbled forward, Each step met with resistance, as if the earth itself mourned her efforts. The dim whispers of her children faded, flickering like dying embers. Was this it? Had fear transformed them into shadows and echoes? No. Then, through the consuming gloom, a shimmer appeared. A brief, glowing figure no bigger than a spark. Instinct took over. Desperate, Jessica lunged towards it, fueled by love and desperation. "Please, please let that be them," she cried out, tears burning hot on her cheeks as she leaped. The moment her fingers met the flickering light, a shockwave coursed through her. The world echoed with a furious roar. The entity snarled, anger erupting like a volcano, shaking her whole being. "Together!" A shaky voice joined in, tiny but fierce. It was Lily. They clung together through the shifting, shadowy storm, the warmth of their bond reigniting that familiar light. But it was not enough. The dark entity rippled and expanded, ready to engulf them once more. "Max!" Jessica screamed, her voice breaking with urgency. "Where are you?" The darkness laughed, a cruel, haunting sound that reverberated through her bones. She was losing them again. With a guttural roar, she felt the darkness loosen its grip, and in that moment she concentrated. "Come to me," she shouted. And as if pulled by an unseen force, she felt Max's presence surge next to them, grasping her free hand. The brightness surged. Their love became a solid beacon, stronger than the gloom around them. But then, with horrifying clarity, she saw the shadows grow closer. A deep, malicious grin formed from the darkness, watching, savoring her fear. "You cannot defeat what is inside you," it hissed. Jessica's knees buckled, fear clawing at her gut, threatening to unravel the closeness they had found. She pressed her children closer, as if her body could shield them from the encroaching terror. The darkness flickered, hungry. "You belong to me." Jessica locked eyes with her children. "No! We will fight!" But would their love be enough? And if it was, what kind of battle lay ahead? With the ground crumbling beneath her, she felt the shadows shift, ready to strike. They had mere seconds left to discover if love could truly shield them from such darkness. As the void howled for them, could they turn the tide before it was too late? Jessica squeezed her children tightly, holding on as if her very life depended on it. The shadows closed in, their tendrils reaching forward, clawing for what they desired. The darkness pulsed, alive with an insatiable hunger, but where fear threatened to consume her, deep within soared the fierce flame of love. "Together," she urged, her voice cutting through the din, ringing with strength. "We must fight for each other." The shadows recoiled momentarily, as if they recognized the power that thrummed between the three of them, a bond stronger than any malevolence. With every heartbeat, their connection surged, anchoring them against the onslaught of despair. They stood taller, feeling the warmth, the undeniable truth of their love wrapping them like a shield. Then a blinding flash erupted around them, the specter of darkness twisting grotesquely in reaction. "You'll regret this," the entity hissed, rage filling the void with an awful resonance. Jessica felt it, a physical weight pressing against her, but she held on to Max and Lily, feeling their warmth seep into her bones, giving her the courage ripped from her very core. "Take my hand," she urged her children, squeezing them tight once more. "Don't let go." Each exchange of warmth ignited something fierce in her, pushing against the shadows much like a heartbeat thumping in fight or flight. With their hands clasped firmly together, they took a collective breath, channeling everything they had. "When you think of me, remember the love," Jessica shouted, feeling the darkness shift around them. With that final push, she felt a pulse surge through the air, a wave of light radiating from the depths of their joined hearts. She focused on all their memories, the warmth of family game nights, summer camping trips, her husband's laughter echoing through the air. It churned in her mind, becoming bright and vibrant. The shadows erupted, hissing and cracking like brittle bones. They recoiled as the light surged, shredding the darkness into wisps that evaporated before their eyes. "Feel the love," Jessica proclaimed, her voice a buoy against the crashing waves of despair. "Let it guide you." The shadows twisted and buckled, the breath of their malevolence finally faltering. Jessica took another step forward, pulling Max and Lily with her. The entity screamed, but now it sounded shrill, fading like smoke as the light burned brighter. Then, the ground beneath them trembled violently. It split again, threatening to open into the abyss. "No! Stay together!" she commanded, her voice cracking with her desperation. She could feel the shimmer of hope withering beneath the shadow's despair, but they could not falter now. "Mommy, we're not scared!" Max shouted, his eyes alight with something fierce. Lily echoed her brother. "We love you!" Jessica felt the warmth of their words crystallize within her soul. "And that's what will save us." As they formed a tight circle, the warmth coursed like wildfire, igniting an explosive release. The shadows screamed, twisting and curling, wrapping impossibly tight, and with their connection solid, Jessica felt herself breaking free. A shattered explosion echoed as the darkness did what shadows do best. It scattered. The air burned with radiance. They burst forth, propelled by their combined strength and love. A final pulse, a flare that shattered the last remnants of despair. The mist melted away, and suddenly they were outside, bathed in the golden light of the sun breaking through the trees. The soft sounds of the forest replaced the hollow echoes of despair. Jessica lowered her arms, breathing deeply, her heart racing with relief. "We made it," she gasped, her eyes bright with tears of joy. Max and Lily hugged her tightly as the weight of the darkness fell away. They stood on the edge of Black Hollow Forest, the sun illuminating their relief like a promise of new beginnings. The woods, once a prison, felt alive again, breathing freely as echoes of laughter filled the air. "We're home!" Lily cried, looking up at her mother with shining eyes. Max jumped up and down in excitement, the bond between them forged anew. A chuckle escaped Jessica, releasing joy that mixed with the remnants of fear. "Yes, my loves. And we're never looking back." The shadows were just that, the shadows, and together they would remain safe, entwined in love forever. Jessica felt like she had emerged from a nightmare, but now sunlight warmed her skin, laughter bubbled in her chest, and peace washed over her. As they walked away from the forest's edge, Jessica turned for a moment to look back, the trees now standing unmoving against the vibrant light. "Thank you," she whispered softly, offering a final breath of gratitude to the woods. She had faced the darkness and emerged, not only as a mother but as a warrior forged in love. "Let's get ice cream," she announced, brightening her children's eyes. As they skipped down the path, laughter filled the air behind them, joyous and unencumbered, a shout against the dark. Together they would journey onward, for there was always light ahead when held up by love. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this twisty tale, you need to subscribe now. Smash that like button. Seriously, it helps us continue to share these exclusive stories. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this ending. What do you think happened next for Jessica, Max, and Lily? And for the ultimate share, get this video to at least 5 friends who need to hear this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Show your support and dive deeper into the stories yet to come.